One Piece. Play as Naruto the Sage and join the Straw Hat Pirates. Chapter 31. Aboard the Mary. I must return to Alabasta as soon as possible and tell the truth. Standing on the deck, Vivi recalled Ikalem's instructions. Thinking about the responsibilities she had on her shoulders, she became more and more anxious. Vivi, the needle is pointing in the right direction, and the wind is also normal, so we can get to Alabasta quickly. Nami looked at the permanent needle and comforted Vivi. I'm really a little tired after all the trouble just now. Can Lynch help me look at the pointer for a while? Nami said while holding the railing. Hearing Nami's voice, Lynch, who was just playing with Kalu with Luffy and Usopp, immediately came to Nami's side. Lynch took the pointer and saw that Nami's face was slightly red and her voice became weak. He touched Nami's forehead. Ah, it's so hot, Nami, you have a fever. Wei Wei, help Nami to go to her room to rest. Nami was groggy and was helped by Wei Wei, leaving the deck and going to her room to rest. 2666, 2667. It's not enough, it's not enough. I want to become stronger. If I can chop off that candle, no one else will have to work so hard. I want to be strong enough to chop off that kind of thing no matter what posture I use. Zoro, you can lift a 1-ton barbell now. Stop training. You will be able to cut iron soon. I'll give you the pointer. Make sure you keep an eye on the course. I have to go see Nami. Lynch threw the pointer to Zoro who was training with a barbell on the bow. Hey, Lynch, what did you say? Lynch's words confused Zoro. Just when he wanted to ask for clarification, he saw Lynch disappearing with the medicine box. Nami's room. Ship doctor, is there no ship doctor on this ship? Wei Wei, who was at the head of Nami's bed, shouted anxiously. We have swordsmen, cooks, snipers. Luffy counted on his fingers one by one, and suddenly his eyes widened and he exclaimed, Ah, we don't have a ship doctor, what should we do, what should we do? He paced back and forth in the room. Nami, who was lying on the bed, became more and more red, panting, and her chest rose and fell. Get out of the way, get out of the way. Lynch shouted, pushing away Sanji and Luffy who were blocking the bed. He had learned medical skills from Crocus at the Upside Down Mountain, although only the basics, but now he was the only one who knew medicine on the ship, and he had to find a way to cure Nami. Nami was a navigator, and without Nami's command, the Mary would be in danger. Lin Chi, Nami-san, will she die? Sanji, who was standing in the corner, was already in tears. He wished he could get sick instead of Nami, and would rather be the one suffering at the moment, not his Nami-san. Lin Chi, who was treating Nami by the bed, motioned Sanji to be quiet, and Usopp immediately covered Sanji's mouth. But he was still making a squeaking sound, nah, nah. With the help of Wei Wei, Lin Chi fed Nami the medicine. How about it, Lynch? Nami will be cured after taking the medicine. Vivi wiped Nami's face with a towel. Lynch looked at Nami and said, maybe you will feel better after taking the medicine given by Senior Crocus. Hearing Lynch's words, Sanji got rid of Usopp and immediately came to the bedside. Lin Chi, you are really awesome. I will make your favorite ramen for you tonight. Sanji breathed a sigh of relief and became more energetic. It turns out that Nami is fine, that's great. Luffy wiped the sweat off his head and started jumping up and down with Usopp. Quiet, quiet, Wei Wei suddenly said seriously. She looked at Lin Chi. Nami's illness should not be that simple, Lin Chi. As expected, it's Wei Wei. She has a different perspective. Nami got sick this time because the climate of the Grand Line is unpredictable and strange. Many people who have just entered the Grand Line will be affected. I have just given Nami acupuncture and medicine. She should be fine for the time being, Lin Chi said in a deep voice. It's okay for now. Sanji, who had just calmed down, began to get impatient again. I learned medical skills from Senior Carracks at Upside Down Mountain, but that was just the basics. If we want to cure Nami completely, we must find a doctor on a nearby island as soon as possible to treat her, Lynch said, looking at Vivi. The situation in Alabasta is urgent and they must get there as soon as possible. Of course, he hopes to defeat Crocodile as soon as possible and improve his role-playing ability, but Nami is seriously ill now and he has to change the route and find a doctor for treatment. Moreover, he cannot lose Chopper as a partner. What decision will Vivi make when she knows the real situation in Alabasta? Suddenly, Nami, who was lying on the bed, sat up. No, we can't change the route. We must not delay going to Alabasta because of me. Nami's voice had become hoarse at this time. Lynch supported Nami, wanting her to lie down and have a good rest. Wei Wei, take a look at this newspaper. Lin Chi handed her the newspaper under Nami's bed. How could this happen? Wei Wei stared at the news in the newspaper with wide eyes, unwilling to believe that it was true. What's wrong? What's wrong? Luffy turned his head and asked curiously. Most of the government forces in Alabasta have joined the rebels. Now the number of rebels has increased greatly, and their strength has been greatly enhanced. As she spoke, Vivi's tears wet the newspaper in front of her. Lynch helped Nami lie back on the bed, walked up and gently wiped Vivi's tears. He whispered, Vivi, this is a newspaper from 3 days ago. Nami wanted to tell you at that time, but I stopped her. Even if you knew it at that time, we couldn't get to Alabasta faster. In order not to let you worry in vain, I asked Nami to hide this newspaper. Lynch saw that Vivi's eyes flashed with a trace of panic. Lin Chi, you must not change the route. You can't let the entire Alabasta kingdom be delayed because of me. Nami, who was lying on the bed, said in a weak voice. At this time, everyone looked at Vivi at the same time. Sanji's eyes were particularly earnest. Nami-san and Vivi-san were equally beautiful and equally important in my heart. But if Vivi insisted on changing the route now, then he would definitely stand on the side of the weak Nami-san. Sanji was extremely worried. Anxious. Vivi, who had been sitting by the bed, suddenly stood up and said, everyone knows about the situation in Alabasta. My country is facing a major crisis. I want to rush back as soon as possible. There is no time to waste. She frowned and clenched her fists. Hearing this, Sanji dropped the cigarette in his mouth. Luffy and Usopp became serious. Then, let's find an island with a doctor right away, cure Nami's illness, and then go to Alabasta. Vivi's panicked look just now has become unusually firm now. Are you telling the truth? Sanji lit up another cigarette, raised his head, and his eyes were filled with tears. Well said, Wei Wei, I'm fascinated by you again. Usopp was startled, staring at her with wide eyes in disbelief. Vivi, you are more worried about the citizens of Alabasta now, right? The situation in Alabasta is chaotic, of course I am worried. Vivi paused and forced a smile on her face. Nami is an important navigator on the Mary. Healing her as soon as possible and then setting off again is the fastest speed for this ship. You are worthy of being the princess of Alabasta, Vivi. Lynch gave Vivi a thumbs up. After Lynch confirmed that Nami was fine for the time being, he asked Vivi to take care of her first. Hey, everyone, let's go out first. Nami needs some quiet time. Lynch pulled the noisy Luffy, Usopp, and Sanji out of the room. Hey, Zoro, is the course okay? Zoro, sitting on the railing, was still exercising with dumbbells in his hands. Don't worry, Lynch, I've been keeping an eye on that cloud. Zoro pointed confidently at the cloud that he thought was guiding the way. The Mary is on the right track, absolutely fine, Lynch. What, Zoro? Lynch was shocked and covered his head. Zoro, the clouds are moving, the course has already deviated. You should go for exercise, I'll keep an eye on it. Zoro muttered, the clouds are moving, the Mary is moving too, how can it be wrong? Lynch climbed onto the observation deck, looked around, and searched for nearby islands. Suddenly, his body moved forward, staring ahead with wide eyes. Hey, Luffy, can people stand directly on the sea? Lynch, what are you talking about? Luffy on the deck looked at Lynch. Lynch jumped off the observation deck and said, look, someone is really standing on the sea. He pointed forward. Suddenly, the calm sea surface was rippled. A steel ship several times larger than the Mary tore the sea surface apart, emerged from the sea, and blocked the Mary. Luffy, there is such a big ship. Usopp pointed at the steel ship and looked at Luffy in disbelief. Luffy threw himself on the railing, shouting, Sigai, this ship is so big. Many little stars appeared in his eyes. Zoro, who was still exercising just now, felt the Mary shaking violently. He turned his head and exclaimed, is this a ship made of steel? Sanji spit out a puff of smoke. At this moment, he only had the sick Nami-san in his mind. If the people in this steel ship threatened Nami's safety, he would definitely kick him away without hesitation. Lynch took a closer look and knew in his heart that this was Walpo's ship, that is, the king of Drum Island. He let him eat the swallow fruit. It was really a waste of a devil fruit with huge potential. He was a foodie. Now they were on the sea. If he took action to duel with him, it would affect the sick Nami and the safety of the Mary. He could only act according to circumstances and feed him the Rasengan when he arrived at Drum Island. This is the surprise attacking sailing ship, the Iron King. You should surrender. Soon, the soldiers of the Iron King came to the Mary. They surrounded the 4 people at the bow and threatened them with guns. Kneel down quickly. This is the Honorable Lord Walpo, the King of Drum Island. Under the gaze of everyone, a short man jumped from the Iron King to the railing of the Mary and looked around at everyone. King. Lynch pointed at Valpo and taunted, that idiot. Valpo's men were shocked when he said this. How dare you laugh at our great king? Our Lord Valpo is not a fool. The soldier who said this turned his head and looked at Valpo, who was eating stupidly with a crunching sound. The soldier was thoughtful and it seemed that what the man said was right. Ah, no, that's the king, how could I think like that? Seeing that the soldier wanted to shoot Lynch, Valpo scolded. Now is not the time to worry about this, wait. The short Valpo had a super big mouth, and his entire chin was wrapped in iron sheet. He was chewing something in his mouth, crunching, and said while chewing, did you catch the 4 people? Are we surrounded? Sanji exhaled a puff of smoke. I think so, Lynch said calmly. What is that person eating? It looks delicious. Luffy kept staring at Walpo's mouth. Zoro's sword was slightly unsheathed at this time. The sound of Walpo chewing became louder and louder. He looked at everyone coldly. Is it strange that there are only 4 people in this pirate group? He opened his mouth wide and threw the remaining knife handle into his mouth. He actually ate the knife. Luffy opened his mouth wide and looked at the scene in disbelief. It hurts just looking at it. Who is this person? Usopp was so scared that he trembled all over, as if he had swallowed the blade. What do you want to do? We are very busy and don't have time to play with you. Luffy angrily scolded the soldiers around him. Listen carefully, we are going to Magnetic Drum Island. Do you have a record pointer or a permanent pointer to go there? Walpo touched his round belly, it seems that he was not full. We don't have that kind of stuff. We have something important to do. Please leave the Mary immediately. Sanji roared, his feet were already stirring, ready for battle. You are not only an idiot, but also a lost idiot. Lynch continued to mock Valpo. Valpo looked indifferent and turned to look at the hull of the Mary. It looks delicious. He opened his huge mouth and bit off a large piece of wood, and swallowed it with a crunch. Don't bite the Mary, Luffy said angrily. Lord Valpo is having his meal, please do not disturb him. The soldier raised his gun and threatened. Luffy, calm down and watch me. Lynch whispered to Luffy. If you don't have it, there is nothing you can do, but now this ship and the treasure on it belong to me. Valpo spread his hands, as if he was 100% sure of taking the Mary. Said I still have the permanent pointer of Drum Island, but I want to give it to you personally, the Honorable Lord Valpo. Lynch lowered his head and touched his pocket, as if telling everyone that the permanent pointer was here. Seeing the pirate who had been mocking him just now become so submissive, Valpo thought that it was his force that made him surrender. He was full of pride, and when he heard that he had the permanent pointer of Drum Island, his expression became even happier. He signaled his subordinates to put down their guns and let Lynch come over. Seeing Lynch walking towards Valpo, everyone held their breath, wondering what Lynch was up to. Come, take out the permanent pointer, and I will let you go. Valpo's voice was full of expectation. Lynch seemed submissive, but what he took out of his pocket was actually a detonating talisman. Foolish king, you believe everything I say, ha 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 ha. Lynch put his hands on his hips and laughed loudly. Valpo's face turned pale and he said angrily, you have laughed at me 3 times, and you still dare to play tricks on me. Go ahead, Lord Valpo. Let him taste the power of the swallow fruit. Use the power of the swallow fruit to eat him up. Seeing their noble king being toyed with like this, the soldiers on the deck shouted and vented their anger. Valpo opened his huge mouth and ate Lynch in one bite. Ah, Luffy, Lynch was eaten. Usopp looked at the scene in disbelief. Lynch, Lin Chi, Sanji and Zoro were surprised at the same time. You ate my friend. Luffy's anger could no longer be suppressed. Delicious, delicious, tastes good. Valpo was still chewing the lynch with a satisfied look on his face. Suddenly, 5 identical lynches appeared in front of him. Idiot, did you really eat me? The 5 lynches leaned forward at the same time, looking at him aggressively, their eyes full of provocation. Ah, how is that possible? Lord Valpo had clearly swallowed him just now. How is this possible? Valpo never loses his tongue. Could he also be a user of devil fruit ability? The appearance of 5 lynches surprised the soldiers of Valpo and they kept guessing. Of course, the people of the Straw Hat Pirates knew that it was Lynch's clone technique. The nervous expressions just now turned into an expression of watching the fun, as if saying that Valpo was going to be unlucky. Valpo widened his eyes and couldn't believe it. He had just eaten him, but so many lynches appeared again. But then he thought again, 1 lynch is so delicious, if he swallows all 5 of them in one bite this time, it will definitely be delicious. Are you kidding me? Thinking of this, his mouth started to smack. Just when Valpo opened his mouth wide and was ready to eat, 5 lynches kicked him away at the same time. Fly to the sky, bye. There was only a bang, and the flying Valpo exploded in the air. Oh no, Lord Valpo was kicked away. How could this happen? Lord Valpo is clearly a landlubber. If you don't save Lord Valpo before he sinks to the bottom of the sea, he will die. Remember this, we will come back for revenge. The soldiers who rushed to rescue Valpo were still roaring in anger 1 second, and disappeared from the Mary the next second. Who is he anyway? Everyone calls him Lord Walpo. Usopp, who had regained his composure, wondered. Vivi, who came out of Nami's room, stroked her chin thoughtfully. That man, I seem to have seen him somewhere. Lynch said anxiously, don't think too much. The important thing now is to land on the nearby island as soon as possible. Hey, according to previous battles, when I defeated my opponent, a beeping system prompt sound would appear in my mind. This time, after I knocked Walpo away, it didn't appear. It seems that Walpo can really swallow anything. He can even digest the detonating tags. The potential of the swallow fruit is indeed huge. I have to feed him a few Rasengan to see if you can eat it. Lynch, who was taking care of Nami at the bedside, was thoughtful. Nami, don't get up, have a good rest. Lin Chi supported her. Everyone. Nami looked at her companions, all of whom were lying on the ground, snoring. Lin Chi whispered, everyone is worried and wants to stay with you. Do you want my autograph? I will sign one for you. Usopp suddenly shouted in his sleep. Looking at this warm scene, Nami and Lynch smiled at each other, and Lynch helped her lie down. The next day, Walpo ate a large piece of the Mary's plank, and Usopp was on the deck, repairing it with a clang. Island, it's an island, I finally saw the island. Lynch shouted and rushed into Nami's room. Nami, we finally see the island. We can find a doctor to cure you. Finally, we can see the cute chopper. The health of the crew will be guaranteed in the future. Lynch is secretly happy. Hearing Lynch's call, everyone on the Mary cheered up. With Lynch's help, Nami came to the boat together. Everyone was wearing thick clothes. Look, it's snow, Luffy grinned from his special seat. The island ahead should be Winter Island. Nami's face looked much better than last night. She stretched out her hand to catch the falling snowflakes, breathing in the fresh air. Lynch felt cold even though he was wearing a cotton coat. He asked Luffy puzzledly, aren't you cold? He saw that everyone except himself was wearing thick clothes, and even Kalu had a scarf around his neck. Luffy, who realized it later, suddenly hugged his chest with his hands, shivering and said, it's so cold. Your reaction is too slow. Everyone was speechless about this slow-reacting captain. Luffy jumped down from the special seat and quickly changed into a thick cotton coat. The Mary was moving steadily towards the port of Winter Island. It seems that the ship can stop here. Wei Wei pointed to the port ahead and said. Suddenly, many figures appeared on both sides of the shore. That's it, pirates. A shout came from the shore. Everyone on the Mary was startled by the sudden sound. These people were wearing thick cotton clothes, each holding a gun, and the gun in their hands was aimed at the people of the Straw Hat Pirates. The atmosphere has become so bad, as expected, my old illness has relapsed again. Usopp muttered while holding his chest. At this time, a big man wearing a green cotton coat and as strong as an ox walked out from the crowd on the shore. He glanced at the Mary and said sternly, "Pirates, listen up. Leave here quickly, leave immediately." There was no room for negotiation in his tone. Dalton, the captain of the Drum Kingdom Guard, Lynch recognized him at a glance. He was a kind man. When Blackbeard invaded Drum Island, the Walpo abandoned his kingdom. It was Dalton who stood up and led the people to face it bravely, so that Drum Island did not fall into chaos. Such a kind and brave person will definitely not hurt himself and his partners. 8 years ago, Walpo implemented the extermination of doctors. He expelled almost all the excellent doctors in the country and only kept 20 doctors in the castle's research institute. In this way, all the doctors in the country became Walpo's exclusive doctors. Whenever someone was sick, they could only kneel down and beg Walpo for help. Walpo's brutal rule made the people of Magnetic Drum Island hate pirates more and more. What they need most now is doctors and medicines. Although he is a half-baked doctor, it is better than nothing. As for medicines, Crocus gave him a lot at the time. He had to find a way to negotiate a deal with Dalton. Lynch stepped forward, waved his hands and shouted, "Our navigator is sick, we need to go to the island to find a doctor to treat him." As soon as these words came out, the people holding guns on the shore became even more angry. "We won't fall for this, you vile pirate. This is our island, we cannot let pirates set foot on it. Well, get out of here quickly, or your ship will be blown up with it." From the crowd on the shore, all that was heard was hatred for the pirates. "It's just our first meeting, do you hate us so much?" Lynch had just finished speaking. Bang! A bullet hit his feet. "Don't talk back," the shooter yelled. "How dare you shoot?" Zoro had already drawn his sword, ready to try, but Wei Wei stepped forward and stopped him. "Guo mo guo moruo." Lynch stopped Luffy who was about to fight back and said to him, "Luffy, not all problems can be solved by fighting bravely." After comforting his partner, Lynch stepped forward again and shouted, "Mr. Dalton, can we make a deal?" Lynch looked at the burly man in front of him. Dalton. Hearing that this pirate knew his name, Dalton was shocked. Who is this guy? Why does he know his name? How much does he know about me or about Drum Island? Is he in league with that Valpo? We can't let the hateful pirates persecute the people anymore. Pirates really can't be trusted. We can't let them land on the island. We must drive them away. Mr. Dalton, he actually knows your name. Could he be sent by Walper to deliberately put on a show in front of us, then take the opportunity to land on the island and wait for Walper to come back and become his king? Ah, how can we let that foodie become king again? How can we live like that? Mr. Dalton, you must not listen to their sweet words, you must drive them away. After hearing Lynch's words, the people surrounding Dalton became even more excited and talked about it. Wei Wei knew that Lynch was a reliable partner, but now was not the time to make any deals. She walked up to Lynch, grabbed Lynch and asked in confusion, "Lynch, we have to hurry up and get to the island to find a doctor." "Lynch, what kind of deal do you want to make with him?" Sanji looked puzzled. Zoro's face changed. Someone actually dared to hurt his companions. He drew his sword and prepared to fight back. "Lynch, what are you talking about? Let me chop them up." Lynch turned around and smiled. "Zoro, now is not the time to fight. I believe we can definitely beat them, but after we beat them, we will really become the hateful pirates in their mouths. Even if we land on the island, they will try every means to drive us away, and Nami will not receive timely treatment. I have a way to make them not stop us from landing on the island, don't worry." "Hey, Zoro." Usopp walked up to him and said, "Lynch is right, put the knife away quickly, we have to trust Lynch." "Zoro, the most important thing between partners is trust." Nami smiled. "Green algae head, put away the knife, if they are shooting, you don't need to draw your sword, I can kick them away by myself." Sanji said, and glared at Zoro. Tisk. Zoro turned his head and reluctantly put away the knife. "Pirates, we won't make any deals with you, leave now." Dalton's tone became more firm. "Mr. Dalton, listen to me first. That Valpo took away all the doctors on the island. What you need most now is doctors and medicines. I am a doctor, and we also have medicines," Lynch said calmly. Doctors and medicines, he really understood the real situation of Magnetic Drum Island. Indeed, what the island lacks most now is doctors and medicines. His words touched his sore spot, but he couldn't believe him just because he said so. Dalton thought. Mr. Dalton, don't listen to him, just shoot. He must be a liar. Where did the medicine come from? Dalton signaled everyone not to move. Lynch saw Dalton's doubts. He quickly formed seals with both hands and summoned a large amount of medicine from the system space. Mr. Dalton, if you let us land on the island, I can give you all these medicines. I also know a little bit of medical skills and can help those in need on the island. Lin Chi said. In an instant, piles of medicines appeared on the bow of the Mary. There are so many medicines. That's exactly what my family needs. With these medicines, my child's illness will be cured. He is a doctor. What we need most now is a doctor, Mr. Dalton. Seeing so many medicines, the people who had pointed their guns at the Straw Hat Pirates just now put down their guns one after another, and the angry expressions on their faces became calm. Hey, Lynch, you gave them all the medicine, what should we do if we get sick? Usopp said anxiously. Lin Chi, what if they get the medicine and chase us away? Zoro said. No, look at these people. After seeing the medicine, Vivi pointed to the people on the shore. The expressions on their faces have eased a lot, and they no longer pointed guns at us. Vivi is worthy of being the princess of Alabasta. She is calm and collected in the face of things. Lynch reached his hand behind him and gave Vivi a thumbs up. These are real medicines. Too many people on the island need them. This pirate is actually a doctor and offered to help the residents on the island. It seems that this group of people should not be Walpo's subordinates, otherwise if someone shot at him just now, they would definitely fight back and would not make a deal with themselves, Dalton thought. Seeing Lynch's sincere look, Dalton finally relented. I'll take you to the city, follow me. Lynch turned his head and smiled. Zoro, it seems that you don't need to draw your sword, we can land on the island safely. Everyone, Lynch said loudly, you can go to the island now, but Sauron and Kalu stay behind to watch the ship. Kalu, who was already shivering with cold, was unwilling to go to this winter island covered with ice and snow. How nice it would be to stay in the warm cabin of the Mary. You guys go ahead, I'm just about to do some winter swimming exercise. Zoro said as he took off his coat. Such good weather, can't be missed. Kalu, come with us. Kalu shook his head and locked himself in the cabin. Look at the boat carefully, green algae head. Sanji deliberately raised his eyebrows and waved to Zoro. Bye. Be careful or I'll chop you to death, you perverted cook, Zoro roared. Lynch was afraid that Zoro and Sanji would fight again, so he quickly shouted, Sanji, stop messing around, hurry up and get to the island. Mr. Dalton, how long will it take to get to the town? Lynch carried the sick Nami on his back and walked with difficulty on the snowy road. We are almost there, right ahead, we will see the village soon. Dalton pointed ahead, but I have to give you a piece of advice first, there is only one witch doctor in our country now. Witch doctor, what is that, what a strange country. Sanji was puzzled. When Lynch heard the word, witch doctor, an image of a lively old lady popped up in his mind. She is 139 years old and still asks everyone she meets all day, do you want to know my secret to eternal youth? That is Chopper's Dr. Doriel. Don't be fooled by her weird personality. She charges a large sum of money every time she sees someone, but she is very kind in her heart, otherwise she would not take Chopper in and teach him medical skills. Knowing that she likes to eat prunes, drink wine, and like all kinds of the latest cosmetics, he had already prepared these as gifts for her. It's not so easy to take Chopper away. You have to please the old lady first. Usopp suddenly shouted. Ah, there's a bear, pretend to be dead quickly, and he threw himself on the snow and pretended to be dead. A huge white bear appeared in front of the crowd, holding a wooden stick as a walking stick. Don't be afraid, it's a hiking bear, it won't hurt anyone, but don't forget the etiquette of mountaineering, nod to each other, Dalton said calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, the group nodded to the hiking bear, and the hiking bear really nodded back to them. Luffy, Winter Island is really a magical country. Nami, we have reached an inhabited village, hold on a little longer. Lin Chi said gently to Nami on his back. Okay, except for the sentinels, everyone else should go back to work. Dalton spread his hands and said to the people following him. Mr. Dalton, are you okay on your own? They are pirates. Yeah. Don't worry, they won't hurt me. This is my intuition that I have developed over the years, Dalton said with a smile. Don't worry, I will personally deliver the medicines to your door. Now I have to find a doctor to treat my friend first. Lin Chi comforted everyone. Since Mr. Dalton believes in you, we have no doubts. Yes, you should go find a doctor to treat your partner first. Mr. Dalton, someone is calling us. Aren't Mr. Dalton and his men the army guarding the country? Wei Wei asked in confusion. They are all civilians, Dalton said. Dalton's house in Big Horn. Dalton lit the stove and his house became warm in a moment. Nami, please lie down on this bed first. Lin Chi gently settled Nami down. Please forgive our rudeness just now. As your companion said, my name is Dalton, and I am now the captain of the guard of this island. Dalton said while taking off his weapon. Can I ask you a question? Dalton stared at Vivi. I feel like I've seen you somewhere before. Vivi, who was staring at Dalton just now, turned to look at Nami immediately after hearing his words, and her expression became flustered. What, you must have recognized the wrong person. He and Vivi must have met at the World Government Conference. Now that Vivi is the Princess of Alabasta, the fewer people know about it, the better. Dalton's attention must be diverted. Lynch thought. Mr. Dalton, your way of chatting up is too old-fashioned, isn't it? Lynch said with a smile. I didn't mean that. Dalton's face turned red, and his two huge hands waved awkwardly, repeating, I didn't mean that. How dare you flirt with my Princess Vivi, be careful or I'll kick you to death. A fire instantly rose in Sanji's heart. Lin Chi noticed that Sanji's eyes were full of anger when he looked at Dalton. Okay, Dalton, everyone will be like this when they see a beautiful woman. Lynch continued to tease him. Dalton's face turned even redder, and he sat down with his head covered, and sighed. Seeing Dalton like this, Lynch was secretly happy in his heart. It seems that this guy has been single since birth. Such a strong man is still shy. This contrast is really interesting. By the way, how did you know about Valpo and some of the situations on our island? Dalton looked at Lynch in confusion, seeming to be on guard against him. Mr. Dalton, it's like this. On the way to Drum Island, we met a group of people who claimed to be from the White Iron Pirates. The leader was Valpo, but I kicked him away with a few kicks. Lynch said confidently, as if he was still enjoying the pleasure of kicking Valpo away. Dalton was surprised. You know, Valpo is the user of the swallow fruit, and he was defeated by him before. And this skinny pirate in front of him could actually defeat Valpo. Judging from his behavior at the port, what he said should be true. You kicked him away, so is he dead? Dalton's expression became nervous, and he snapped his fingers one by one, expecting a positive answer from Lynch. No, he fell into the sea and was rescued by his subordinates. Lynch noticed Dalton's expression and continued, he is likely to return to Magnetic Drum Island. What? Dalton's pupils dilated rapidly. This was the last thing he wanted to see. If Valpo came back, the residents of the island would have to endure his brutal rule again. He would never allow such a thing to happen. Mr. Dalton, don't worry, if he dares to come back here, I will fight alongside you. Lynch said confidently. At such a serious moment, the cheerful voices of Luffy and Usopp suddenly came from outside the window. Luffy, look, this is my giant snowman. Tisk, look at my snow monster Shura. Lynch looked through the window and saw the two men standing on their respective snowmen, grinning and showing off to each other. Lynch sighed and was about to lose his temper. But Sanji couldn't stand it anymore, so he pushed open the window and yelled, come in quickly if you don't want to be kicked away by me. Oh no, Nami has a high fever of 42 degrees, Wei Wei said anxiously beside the bed. Dalton, where is that witch? Call her here quickly. Sanji became even more anxious. Looking out the window, there are several very high mountains. The witch lives on the highest mountain, which was once the castle of the king of Magnetic Drum Island. Dalton pointed out the window. Those are the ridiculously high mountains. So call her over quickly and heal Nami-san, Sanji shouted. It's impossible. The witch has a strange personality. She only comes down the mountain occasionally to treat the residents of the town and charges a very high fee. Dalton's tone was full of helplessness. He thought of another doctor who, although his medical skills were third-rate and his personality was confused, always had a heart to save the world. Lynch said in a deep voice, "It seems that we have to climb that mountain and find the witch to heal Nami. We must set off now and can't delay any longer. This place is still some distance away from the castle where Dr. Kuleha lives. If you want to get there as soon as possible, it seems that you have to summon Toad Boss. On the way up the mountain, you will also meet Labang, a large carnivorous rabbit. Toad Boss has to come out to help again," Lynch thought. When Luffy heard it, he immediately walked to Nami's bed, shouting, "Nami, Nami." He slapped Nami's face back and forth. "Are you a devil?" Vivi, Sanji, and Usopp shouted angrily. Nami must be sick and listless now, otherwise she would have jumped out of bed and beaten Luffy, and he would have had a lot of problems on his head. Lynch couldn't stand it anymore, so he stepped forward and grabbed Luffy's hand. At this moment, Nami woke up from the sound of rapid breathing. "Hey, Nami, did you hear that? The doctor is on the highest mountain, we're going to climb the mountain," Luffy said. "How is that possible? This lady has such a high temperature now, and it is still a long way from the castle. It is impossible for you to climb up with her." Dalton wanted to persuade Luffy. "Dalton, we have to leave now. According to you, the witch's time to go down the mountain is uncertain, and Nami's illness can't wait," Lynch said seriously. After a burst of fast and slow breathing, Lynch saw that Nami slowly opened her eyes. Everyone in the room held their breath and listened to Nami's voice. Even if it's for Wei Wei, I have to hold on, please, let's go now." Nami forced a smile from her haggard face. "Leave it to me." Luffy showed his signature smile and reached out to clap his hands with Nami. Seeing Luffy, Lynch and the others had such courage for their companions, Dalton was more certain of his judgment. The people in this pirate group were very different from Valpo and his group. For their own safety, Valpo could easily abandon the people of the entire Drum Island and flee to the sea. But they cared about their companions so much, which proved that they were kind and trustworthy people. "But Luffy, can you let Lynch carry me?" Nami whispered while lying on the bed. Now someone has to carry her up the mountain. If she had to choose someone, she would definitely not choose Captain Luffy. It's not that she doesn't trust him, but Lynch's calmness makes her feel more at ease. If she lets Luffy carry her, she will probably fall apart before she even reaches the mountain. "Why?" Luffy asked, turning his head in confusion. "Stupid." Sanji pointed at Luffy and said, "Nami-san, he must be worried about you." Although Sanji really wanted to carry Nami-san on his back when climbing the mountain, he couldn't miss such a good opportunity to show off. But he knew Lynch's calmness and strength, especially that his strength was above his own. It would definitely be safer for him to carry Nami-san on his back. He could be jealous, but Nami-san's safety was more important. "So that's how it is, ha 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 ha." Luffy touched his hat and laughed. Hearing Nami say this, Lynch felt warm in his heart. It felt good to be trusted by Miss Nami. Sanji, who always liked to show his courtesy to Nami, actually agreed to carry Nami on his back to climb the mountain, which surprised him a little. "Leave it to me, Miss Nami." Lynch smiled at Nami with a soothing smile. "If you must go, at least go from the back of the mountain. If you go up the mountain from the front, you are likely to meet Labang." Dalton saw that he couldn't persuade them, so he could only try to let them take a safe path. "What is a labang?" Sanji asked in confusion. Lynch said calmly, "It is a large carnivorous rabbit with strong attack power. It will be even more dangerous if you encounter a group of labangs. You will die." "Lynch is right, so you should go from the back of the mountain." Dalton spread his hands and persuaded again. Lynch carried Nami on his back and was about to set off. "Dalton, thank you for your kindness, but we have to climb the mountain from the front, otherwise Nami's illness will become more and more serious." Dalton saw that Lynch's eyes were unusually firm, so he stopped persuading him. Wei Wei, Usopp, this road is quite dangerous, you guys stay here for now and wait for us to get down the mountain," Lynch said. "Leave it to me, Lynch." Usopp showed a confident smile. The snow was falling harder and harder, and the wind was biting. Vivi checked that Nami was firmly tied to Lynch's back. "Lynch, why don't you leave? Everyone has come to the outside of the house," Sanji asked in confusion. "Wait a moment." Lin Chi's mouth curled up slightly, revealing an intriguing smile. Lin Chi bit his finger and used the bleeding finger to scratch his palm. Hi, Shu, Yu, Shen, Wei. After the seal was completed, he shouted. The art of spiritual communication. He clapped his hands on the ground, and a circular art immediately appeared on the ground. Then there was a bang, and a puff of white smoke rose. Under his feet appeared a man with a unique face. Yu, a giant purple-red toad with a black tattoo on its back, a pot-lid-shaped shield on its back, and a harpoon covered with thorns in its hand. The huge toad suddenly appeared, and the ground around it was shaken 3 times. Ah! How is it possible? How could such a big toad appear out of nowhere, and even carry a weapon on its back? Dalton was shocked. He widened his eyes. Who on earth is Lynch? It seems that what he said is true. A person with such strength can indeed defeat Valpo. Big frog. Wei Wei had seen Toad Wenta last time, but now such a big frog suddenly appeared. She was still scared and her eyes turned white. Ah! Lin Chi exclaimed, looking at the toad under his feet, his eyes wide open. Why is it you, Toad Jian, where is Toad Boss? I am really useless. Bunta is taking care of Gamakichi at Myoboku Mountain. Gamakichi has been ill recently, Gumaken said calmly. In the world of Naruto, when others summoned a spirit beast, they could summon whoever they wanted to summon. As expected, Naruto's summoned beast was whoever had time to summon. When he was making hand seals just now, he was thinking of Gamma Boss. After all, he and Gamma Boss had fought side by side once before. They had a certain tacit understanding in fighting, so he definitely hoped that he would come out to help him this time. Who knew that Gumaken would come out? However, Gumaken's body shape and fighting ability are not bad. People in the martial arts world say that the one who says the most cowardly words and fights the most fiercely is Gumaken. Luffy, who is on Gamajian's head, had many little stars in his eyes. Lynch, this is a different big toad from last time. He kept patting Gamajian's big head with his hands. Sanji lowered his head and lit a cigarette. Lynch, you have quite a lot of toads. It seems that this one is also a combat-type toad. Yes, this is Gumaken, Gamabunta's brother. He is very powerful. Lynch said and gave Gumaken a thumbs up. Gamma Jian, we are going to climb the highest mountain. I will tell you the details on the way. Please help me. Lin Chi pointed to the mountain in front and said. Gamma Jian looked carefully and said, I know. Although I am useless, I will try my best. I can't say I'm asking you to do it. The wine that Gamma Bunta brought back last time was good. Toad Jian, it depends on you. The wine will bring you a lot this time. Don't worry, let's go now. Lin Chi said. Nami is about to leave, hold on to me tightly, Lynch said gently. Hold on tight, Gumaken reminded. As soon as he finished speaking, with a whoosh, Gumaken jumped up and ran forward. The snow fell heavier and heavier, and the snowflakes blown up by the strong wind rolled and danced, like a huge white vortex, swallowing everything. Dalton came back to his senses from the shock just now, turned around and prepared to enter the house, but he saw Usopp and Vivi standing there motionless. Dalton said in a deep voice, What's wrong with you, aren't you going back to the house? I won't go in. I want to wait for them here. Usopp waved his hand, his long nose was already red from the cold. Going there alone would only cause trouble, and he would need the protection of Lynch and Luffy. So he would wait for them to come back in this icy and snowy place, which would also be considered as accompanying them. Me too. Wei Wei turned around and smiled. Her little face was also red from the cold. She rubbed her hands back and forth, trying to warm herself up. Well, I'll wait with you guys too. Dalton sat on the ground. The 3 looked at each other and smiled. Although the weather outside was cold, Wei Wei felt warm in her heart. Since she boarded the Straw Hat Pirates ship, she felt the bond, friendship, and trust between the Straw Hat Pirates. Lynch could risk his life for his companions, which was really admirable. Will I become such a person one day? As Gamajian leapt forward, the ground where he landed shook violently, blasting a hole in the snow. Under this powerful explosive force, Gamajian rushed forward like a whistling cannonball, carrying Lynch and the others, wrapped in the cold wind and blizzard. Brother Jian, you can jump really far, almost as far as Boss Toad, Lin Chi praised. No, let's not talk about this for now. Toad Jian's 2 frog eyes rolled up. Can you ask your friend with a straw hat to stop patting my head? It's distracting me too much. Gamaken's tone was full of helplessness. Lynch turned around and saw that Luffy was patting Gamaken's head with both hands. Captain Luffy was particularly interested in all new things, especially strange things. Lynch complained in his heart. Hey, Luffy, stop playing and focus. Lynch covered his head and sighed. Gamaken, be careful ahead, Lebang will jump out of the woods, a big rabbit with strong attack power, Lynch reminded. In the original plot, Lebang did attack Luffy and Sanji. But after the avalanche, Luffy saved their leader, and these Lebangs actually resisted Walpo's pursuit for Luffy and his team, which also caused Lebang to be seriously injured by Walpo. So they are not bad by nature, but in this icy and snowy world, they are just hungry and regard Luffy and Sanji as food. After Chopper boarded the Straw Hat Pirate's ship and left, Lebang replaced him to pull the sled for Dr. Gerva. This matter must be facilitated by oneself, selling Dr. Kuleha, this is a favor. Because of this, I won't really hurt these big rabbits, and I have to find a way to let them avoid Walpo's attack. It is definitely not possible to talk to them nicely. Lebang has the same personality as the Kung Fu manatee. He only recognizes the strong people he agrees with. He ignores other creatures and beats them up as soon as he meets them. To catch a thief, you must catch the leader first, so Tojian has to subdue their leader first, otherwise they will cause an avalanche in groups, and the consequences will be disastrous. Tojian said in a deep voice, from just now, I heard something running around in the woods on both sides. Be careful. Lin Chi exclaimed. Suddenly, a Lebang jumped out of the woods and rushed towards Tojian. Tojian turned around and dodged his attack. Lebang chased after Tojian. Gamaken, just dodge their attacks, don't hurt them, Lynch said. Gamaken used his shield and thorn harpoon to fend off the Lebangs that rushed over one after another. This reminded Lynch of the scene when Jiraiya used summoning to summon Gamaken to fight against the split dogs summoned by Pain when he sneaked into the Rain Shadow village. Gamaken used his body shape to move, and his flexible active attacks and passive defenses were his performance in this battle, which made Gamaken gain the love of many Naruto fans. Gamaken's spinning kick was quite handsome, and the split dogs screamed when kicked, which was more than enough to deal with these Lebangs. What, Lynch, what are you talking about? These rabbits are running back and forth with their mouths wide open biting people. Why can't you kick them away? What if they bite Nami-san? Sanji didn't understand Lynch's behavior. He took a deep puff of cigarette, raised his head and stared at the Lebangs that were rushing towards him, his feet shaking restlessly. That's right, Lynch, there are too many big rabbits, let me deal with them in one move. Luffy said as he was ready to take action. Lynch said seriously, Luffy, wait, we don't have time. Lebangs appear in groups. We can't finish them if we fight them one by one. You have to know that you have to catch the leader first. Luffy was dizzy by what Lynch said. It was obvious that he could deal with these big rabbits in just a few moves, so why couldn't he take action? But he knew that Lynch was a trustworthy partner, and it would be right to listen to him. Hamajian, these small Lebangs are not important. We need to subdue their leader, which should be a giant Lebang with a scar on the left side of its face. As soon as Hamajian landed, dozens of Lebangs appeared in front of him, standing there menacingly. That's him, Tojian. Lynch pointed at a giant Lebang standing in the middle. I understand. Although I am useless, I will try my best. After saying this, Tojian thrust his thorn harpoon forward, and the harpoon flew accurately towards the leader of Lebang. The leader of Lebang stared at the harpoon coming towards him, but his face did not change. Cutting a small harpoon, what can it do to me? I am the overlord of this area, and the scar on my face is not for nothing. Look, I can dodge it with a side jump. It is ready to jump to the side to avoid it. Ah, Tojian, missed. Lynch shouted, and Tojian's harpoon was firmly stuck in the ground. I am really useless, leave it to me, hold on tight, Tojian said in a deep voice. Luffy, it's your turn. Lynch turned and looked at him. Guo Moruo. Luffy stretched out his arms and firmly pressed Sanji, Lynch, and Nami on Gamaken's head. He grabbed Gamaken's big ears with both hands. Gamaken jumped up with his feet, grabbed his thorn harpoon with one frog paw, and then the whole frog body did a perfect spinning side kick, kicking the leader of Lebang to the snow. The other Labangs beside it saw this scene, and their jaws dropped to the ground in fear. This is their leader, the strongest Labang, and he was defeated by a toad. What should we do? Run away now. The Labangs, one by one, had expressions of fear on their faces, and kept yelling. The Labang leader who was kicked to the ground was stunned. He didn't expect that he would be defeated by a big frog. Such a big frog was even more flexible than himself. It was amazing. You know, he is the most powerful animal in this area. Except for Walpo, he has never been afraid of anyone. But now he can only fall to the ground and look up at the big frog. And the yellow-haired man on the big frog's head, who can make this frog obey him? Who is this person? At this time, Toad Ken held the thorny harpoon against its neck. Luffy's eyes were full of stars. See Gui, a perfect spinning sidekick. What a powerful toad. It's even more powerful than the last Gamabunta. So what should we do next, Lynch? Sanji asked first. It's up to Gamaken to do it next, Lynch said. Gamaken was sweating coldly. It was you who said that these Labangs should not be harmed. He had to subdue their leader, and now he had done it. What else could he do? He was really unpredictable. How come his fighting style was similar to Naruto's? He didn't follow the rules, and every move was unexpected. Gamaken wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, Lynch, what else can we do? His tone was full of helplessness. Luffy and Sanji also had a lot of question marks on their heads. Toad Jien, you should be able to communicate with it without any obstacles. Now that you have defeated it and gained its recognition, it will definitely believe what you say. Lynch said lightly. Lynch continued, tell it not to hang around here for the time being. There will be enemies stronger than them coming soon. Let them hide quickly. Toad Jien. Quack 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 quack. Chief Labang. Goo 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 goo. Toad Jien communicated in frog language. Lin Chi, it said they will not hide. This area is their territory. Unless you can defeat it, don't think of letting them leave. Lin Chi, you actually asked me to do translation. I am a combat-type summoned beast, really. I have to talk to Wentai and Toad Guang when I go back, Toad Jien complained in his heart. Lin Chi saw the leader of Labang lying on the ground, his eyes became more fierce. Toad Jien, tell it that the leader of that group is called Walpo. Before Toad Jien could translate, when Chief Labang heard the name Walpo, his eyes changed immediately. Now his eyes were full of fear, and Lynch found that other Labangs were even trembling all over, as if they had heard of some monster. Walpo. Is that the Walpo who eats everything he sees? Chief Labang recalled the scene in his mind where several of his brothers had been cruelly eaten by it. Fortunately, that guy was full at that time, otherwise he would not have escaped his clutches. Beast. He is even more like a beast than us. How did such a person become the king of this island? I really don't know what the humans on this island think. Since he became king, the prey in the mountains has become more and more. Without them, our days are getting harder and harder. No matter how much we hate them, we can't beat Walpo. His big mouth can swallow anything. Sigh. Now we have to run away with our brothers. It turns out that this yellow-haired human was kindly reminding us. We really wronged them. We wanted to eat them all just now. After all, our brothers haven't eaten for a long time. After Chief Labang knew Lynch's intention, he pushed away Todian's harpoon and stood up. He stood in the middle of the group of Labangs, which was the C position belonging to his leader. Lynch found that the fear in Chief Labang's eyes had disappeared when he stood up again. Now his eyes are full of determination, and with a hint of gratitude, he stares at Lynch. Chief Labang kept saying, goo 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 goo. The two huge rabbit fingers pointed at themselves, and then at the group of Labangs behind them. After all this, Lin Chi was confused and could only ask Toad Jien for help. Brother Jien, what is it saying? Its two hands are gesturing back and forth. Lynch, that Labang said that on behalf of the tribe, he is very grateful to you for risking your life to remind them that Valpo is coming. Valpo has eaten several of his brothers before. It is going to flee with its tribe now. It admires your courage and says you have their approval. When Lynch heard that Walpo didn't even let go of the rabbit, he thought of a classic movie line, how can you eat rabbits? He felt that this was the most he had said as a spirit beast. Usually, he only needed to say a few of his catchphrases when he appeared on stage, and the rest was to start fighting. This back and forth translation was more tiring than fighting. He would have to ask Lynch for a few more bottles of wine later. Just as he was thinking this, Lynch spoke again. Brother Jian, tell it that after tomorrow, it is hoped that it can pull the sled for Dr. Kuleha. Chopper is going to follow him, so he has to find a new helper for Dr. Kuleha. After To Jian finished speaking, the leader of the Labang nodded to Lin Chi, agreeing with his proposal. Then, he led his tribe into the woods and disappeared in the heavy snow. Seeing that all the Labangs had disappeared, To Jian was secretly delighted and breathed a sigh of relief. He finally didn't have to do the translation work anymore. Brother Jian, we are almost at the peak of the mountain, just ahead. Lin Chi pointed ahead. Lynch, this Walpo is so cruel that he doesn't even let go of the rabbit. But what do you mean by asking it to help Dr. Kuleha pull the sled? Sanji had too many questions in his mind at this time. Sanji, when we reach the highest mountain, everything will be clear, Lynch pretended to be deep. While the two were talking, Gamaken jumped to the bottom of the mountain. Lynch looked up and saw a mountain that was towering into the clouds, and it was vertical to the ground at 90 degrees, without any slope at all. This height was about the same as the height of the cliff that Gamaken jumped from when he tested himself last time. It should be a piece of cake for Gamaken, but he must protect Nami while he jumps up. Lynch quickly asked Sanji to tighten the rope tied around Nami and himself. After confirming that it was firm, Lynch turned his head and whispered, Nami, bear with it a little longer, we'll be there soon. Nami nodded softly and hugged Lynch tightly with both hands. Brother Jian, we are going to reach the top of this mountain. It's up to you. The biting cold wind hit his face, and Lin Chi felt a pain like a knife cutting. The snow was falling heavier. But when he thought that Nami would be treated soon and he would finally see Chopper, he felt warm in his heart. To Jian shook off the snow on his body and reminded Lin Chi, it's no problem to climb up, but can your bodies bear it? Now the snow is getting heavier and the wind is blowing harder than before. Do you know how much pressure your bodies have to bear? To Jian's face was full of worry for them. Lin Chi frowned and his eyes were firm, as if no difficulties could stop him from moving forward. He said firmly. Brother Jian, for your companions, this is nothing, just jump. Lin Chi, can Gamajian jump up such a high mountain? Sanji looked at the towering mountain in front of him and couldn't help but worry. He had seen Gamajian's fighting ability. Although he was powerful, how could a toad jump up such a high mountain? What if he fell down halfway through the jump? If it didn't work, he could only take Nami to climb the mountain. Even if he had to climb step by step, he had to climb up and find a doctor to treat Nami. He even began to imagine in his mind that he was the one who found the doctor with Nami-san, and after Nami recovered, she fell into his arms. The two hugged each other tightly, and Nami-san put her ear close to him and whispered to him to thank him. Thinking of this, Sanji couldn't help but giggle. But when he turned around, Nami, who was on Lin Chi's back at this time, was still so haggard. He took a few puffs of cigarette, flicked the ash, and his expression immediately became serious. Hearing that someone dared to question him, a trace of anger rose in Gamajian's heart. He raised his head and glanced at the mountain, sneered, Humph, at this height, it's much shorter than the mountain I climbed on Mount Myoboku. When I was 8 years old, I could jump higher than this mountain. I'm just a little low-key when I'm a frog, and I don't bother to say these things. You really think I can't do it? Could it be my catchphrase that makes you doubt my strength? I'm also deeply influenced by Fukusaku. It always tells me to be low-key when being a frog and high-key when doing things. The curly eyebrow guy, not only do you look down on me, but you also smoke on top of my head, and the ash from the cigarettes is all over my head. It's true. I just washed my hair before I came here, and I used several bottles of shampoo. It's because you are Lynch's partner, otherwise I would have thrown you off long ago, and I can still let you show off on top of my head. Sure enough, no matter in which world, strength is the hard truth. Now I can't keep a low profile anymore, so I'll show my strength a little. Lynch turned around and smiled. Sanji, you have to trust your companions, Gamaken is very powerful. Luffy shouted loudly on the side. Go, Gamaken, and made a gesture of rushing upwards with both hands. Luffy, it's your turn. Lynch slowly leaned over and stuck to Gamaken's body. Guo Moruo. Luffy stretched out his arms and firmly attached Sanji, Lynch, and Nami to Gamajian's head. He stretched out his two arms and wrapped them around Gamajian several times before he felt relieved. Hold on tight. Toad Jian shouted. Toad Jian's whole body began to sink slowly. It gathered all its strength on its two thick frog legs, and its muscles were visibly tensed. Bang! A deep pit exploded under Toad Jian's feet. The amazing force pushed Toad Jian's body. Its figure was like a cannonball launched from the spot, flying towards the top of the mountain at an extremely fast speed. This was a pure explosion of speed and strength. In less than a second, Toad Jian had risen dozens of meters. Sanji, who was lying on Toad Jian, wanted to raise his head to have a look. But under the strong air pressure, he felt as if a huge invisible hand was holding him down tightly, forcing his whole body to stick tightly to Gamaiken's body, unable to move. He could only close his eyes tightly, and the cigarette that he had just held in his mouth was blown away by the fierce cold wind, and he kept inhaling cold air into his mouth. He endured the huge pressure and slowly closed his mouth, holding Gamaiken's body tightly with both hands. He didn't expect that Gamaiken actually jumped up. Gamaiken suddenly jumped up, which scared Luffy. He grabbed Gamaiken's hands and held them tighter. He was stubborn and had to fight against the fierce cold wind. He gritted his teeth and tried to lift his head up. He was a rubber man, and after inhaling so much air, his face immediately turned into a balloon. He gritted his teeth, trying not to let the cold air in, but as Toad Jian's jump height increased, he was still forced to lower his head by the cold wind. As Lynch rose rapidly, he could only feel a constant beeping sound in his ears. He felt a strong push on his back, which was similar to the feeling of weightlessness when doing a bungee jumping. This feeling of weightlessness made him feel dizzy, vertigo, and a little nauseous. The fierce cold wind blew, so he had to close his eyes tightly and pray for a safe landing. Lynch, Lynch. Is someone calling my name? The huge impact caused Lynch's ears to tinnitus. He could only vaguely hear someone talking loudly. The voice was quite familiar. It should be Toad Jian's voice. He felt that the fierce cold wind just now became much milder. Could it be that they had arrived? Lin Chi slowly opened his eyes, stood up, and looked down. The tall mountain was already at their feet. But why did it feel farther and farther away from the top of the mountain? He looked carefully and screamed in surprise. Ah, Gamaiken, you jumped too high. Seeing this scene, Sanji finally realized the powerful strength of Gamaiken. This amazing jumping ability is really admirable. When will he have such strength? He gave Gamaiken a thumbs up. Seeing this scene, Luffy began to pat Gamaiken's head again and laughed. See Gui. Humph, how could I not know? I just want you to broaden your horizons and know the strength of my Gamaiken. I scared you, right? See if that curly-browed guy dares to look down on me. Where's the cigarette in your mouth? It was shaken off by me. It's just that the snow fell too heavily, otherwise I could jump higher. Gamaiken was so proud of himself that he landed steadily on the top of the mountain. Lynch calmed down, looked forward, and finally saw the castle on the top of the mountain. Tap, tap, tap. The crisp footsteps echoed very clearly in this cold castle. A short figure with a pink hat and two small deer horns was walking back and forth in the room. Today I can follow Dr. Doriel to do new medical experiments. I have to be more serious and try to learn more medical skills. I want to save more patients like Dr. Halulik and Dr. Doriel, and I want to go on adventures on the sea like them. The doctor once said to me, it's good to be a pirate. There are many people and things on the sea that you can't imagine. Chopper, one day you will go to the sea, and then you will understand how insignificant your troubles are. Your tomorrow is on the sea. Can I really find a partner who doesn't treat me as a monster? Chopper gradually lost himself in thought as he recalled this. Crackle, crackle, a clear crisp sound brought Chow Ba back to reality. Chopper, I told you to be careful, why did you break the bottle again? Dr. Kuleha roared, and the wine in the bottle she had been holding in her hand was shaking. She was doing an extremely important medical experiment. If it succeeds, she can charge a higher fee next time when she uses it to treat people in the town. Thinking like this in her mind, the mood that was ruined by Chopper felt a little better. She took a big gulp of wine, staring at the experiment in front of her, with an evil smile on the corner of her mouth. Hearing that Dr. Doriel was angry, Chopper held his breath, his eyes fixed on Dr. Doriel's movements. He kept praying in his heart, Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. He stood on tiptoe and took a few steps back, being careful not to make any sound. He stretched his little hand backwards and fumbled for the door handle. He would be in trouble if he was caught by Dr. Dolly. He remembered that he had broken Dr. Dolly's wine bottle last time. She was so angry that he was scared. He had to run away quickly. He could not hear any movement from his stupid son. Dr. Kuleha shouted at the top of his voice, "Chopper." Chopper's eyes widened, his pupils shrank instantly, and he took a few steps back in panic. Dwang. The bookshelf behind him was knocked down by him. Bang. 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 The books on the bookshelf fell on his head one after another. Chopper lowered his head, his eyes full of grievance, and said timidly, "Dr. Doriel, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it." "Okay, stupid son, clean it up quickly, the experiment has to continue now, come and help." Chopper said carefully, "Dr. Doriel, aren't you angry? I am now 139 years old and young and beautiful. Being angry is not good for my skin." She shook her hair and pushed her black sunglasses with one hand, smiling at Chopper. Seeing that Dr. Doriel was no longer angry, Chopper's heart finally settled down and he became bolder. "Dr. Doriel, can I go to the sea like you?" "Shut up, Chopper." Before he could finish, Dr. Kuleha interrupted him. Chopper looked up and saw that the Dr. Doriel, who was smiling just now, became serious again. He lowered his head silently again. "That quack doctor shouldn't have instilled such ideas in you. Just stay by my side. Don't say such things again, or you won't be able to call me Dr. Doriel anymore." Dr. Kuleha's tone was firm, not allowing for any negotiation. Chopper muttered softly, "But I heard that there is a kind of food called marshmallow in the sea, which is very delicious. Last time when I went down the mountain, I saw the children in the town eating delicious food, and I wanted to eat it too." He rubbed his two little deer hooves against his chest. Bang! There was a loud noise, shaking the whole castle. "Chopper, what's going on?" The noise made Dr. Kuleha's lab table a mess, and all the bottles and jars used for the experiment were shaken to pieces. Dr. Kuleha's face became even gloomier. "Ah!" With a cry of surprise, Chopper, who was standing on the chair, was shocked and fell down. He touched his blue nose and stood up. Chopper, who stood up, immediately changed from beast form to human form, and said seriously, "Dr. Doriel, could it be that Valpo is back?" In this form, the antlers on his head degenerated and turned into a human form, and his expression became nervous. Dr. Kuleha clenched his fists and said angrily, "That idiot, what can he do if he comes back? Go and see, my experiments have been destroyed by him, and I will not let him go." Outside the castle. "Ah, Dr. Doriel, the big frog, the big frog." The frightened Chopper changed back to his human beast form and hid behind Dr. Kuleha. He pulled Dr. Doriel's trouser legs and exposed his body. He stared straight ahead with his eyes wide open, his eyeballs not moving, and said in horror, "Dr. Duolier, run quickly, there are humans standing on the big frog." Lin Chi, who was standing on To Jian's head, kindly reminded, "You're hiding, Chopper. Shut up, human, I don't need your reminder." Although Chopper said this, he immediately hid his body behind Dr. Doriel, only sticking out a little head to observe the movement in front of him. The raccoon cat spoke. Luffy widened his eyes and exclaimed. Sanji was surprised and said, "It's a raccoon cat with a blue nose." "I'm not a raccoon cat, I'm a reindeer." Chopper, who was hiding behind Dr. Dolly, suddenly appeared and pointed at his head with his little hoof and shouted angrily, "Look, I have horns on my head." Dr. Dolly didn't. He was so angry that he flicked Chopper's head. "Chopper, calm down, don't forget, I am also a human being." Dr. Kuleha said to Chopper to calm down, but she was 139 years old and it was the first time she saw such a big frog. She pushed her black sunglasses, took a close look at the big frog in front of her, staring at Lynch and the others with a murderous look on her face. "I finally see you, Chopper, come to me and let me rub you." Lynch was secretly delighted when he saw Chopper. The focus now is to persuade the eccentric Dr. Kuleha to treat Nami and then take Chopper away. Gamaken said anxiously, "Hey, Lynch, I'm going back to Myoboku Mountain. When I came out, Fukasaku told me to go back early." "Ah, the frog actually spoke." Could it be that he was an animal that ate the devil fruit like me? Hearing that Gamaken actually spoke, Chopper's pupils trembled violently, but he quickly calmed down. He actually had an urge to communicate with Gamaken in his heart. Thanks for watching.